To address the issues facing Tennesseans today, from 10 News, this is Inside Tennessee.
Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. In this morning, we may have one of the most important conversations that we do all year on this broadcast. We are talking about what one Secretary of State recently called the oxygen of democracy. That is voting. And that is our focus this morning, and we welcome two experts on that very topic. One is a Democrat, one is a Republican. Both held the same office for almost 20 years between them. Greg Mackay is the Democrat and Cliff Rodgers the Republican, and both were once the administrator of elections for Knox County. Gentlemen, we're glad you're with us this morning. I'm going to get questions to you, but first let me introduce our panel, and that is Don Bosch, who is a Democrat and runs his own law firm. Susan Richardson-Williams is a Republican. She runs her own PR firm. And Greg, I'm going to begin with you. I want you to grade the voting security of Knox County with an A through an F. What would you give it and why?
Well, John, I'd give it an A, maybe an A+. I've got a lot of experience in it. I was administrator for 8 years, and I was a commissioner for 8 more, 16 years. And since then, I think we've been ably served. Cliff Rodgers did a great job, and the current administrator is doing. They've got a good staff there. You know, people ask me if I'm worried about the voting by mail, about the paper ballots. No, I'm not. I think the post office is going to do their job. I think the election workers are going to do their job. And like I told Cliff earlier, as long as Tammy's down there counting the absentee ballots, I feel comfortable.
Cliff Rodgers, same question to you, a grade, and then I'll follow up with another question to you.
Sure. Well, Greg Mackay and I are in complete agreement. I would give him an A+ without reservation. And I want to tell all the viewers right now, my wife and I have already sent in our applications for absentee ballots. I voted in August by absentee ballot, and I have complete confidence in it. If I didn't, I wouldn't be voting like that, and I'm recommending it to anybody when I talk to them, especially if they're 60 or older.
I want to clarify vote by mail and absentee. I have in my hand the absentee ballot that is posted, as you mentioned, right now on the website. And there are a list of reasons that you can receive an absentee ballot in the state of Tennessee. One is I am 60 years of age or older, or I'll be outside my county during all hours of early voting and before the polls close on Election Day. These are the exceptions listed right now. You can go there and see them. That is absentee voting in the state of Tennessee. The other topic we've heard talked about a lot is vote by mail, and that's what I want to dig into, because some states like Washington or Oregon send ballots to all voters in the state. Those votes and then are mailed back in to be counted. And Greg, let's start with you on this one. Have you heard of any instances of fraud or problems with that process in your tenure or time?
Oh, well, sure. There was something recently in Paterson, New Jersey, but what happened was this. John, if you try to go from to absentee, which is what we were doing, last year here in Knox County, to 100%, to where everybody has to vote by mail, it's a recipe for disaster. You just can't get people to change that quickly. Think back to early voting. When I got there in 2003, 20% of the people voted early. The last presidential race I ran was 2008, 75% of the people voted early. I got 80,000 people to change their voting behavior, but it took 5 years. You can't make drastic changes in your voting process overnight. But as far as any kind of problem with it, inherent problem with voting by mail, they do it in Utah, which is a big Republican state. They do it in different states all across the country. People who say there's a problem with by-mail voting, you got to remember, that's a campaign tactic, not a truth.
Cliff, your take, and then Susan, follow up.
Well, I think Greg's absolutely right again. I am not aware of any significant issues with either the absentee by-mail voting like we do in Tennessee and like a lot of other states, or those states where everybody votes by mail. I read election line every day when I was there for 9 years, because you want to understand what is going on in other states. Are they having problems? Fraud is simply a very insignificant issue. And certainly there are cases. What I call just garden variety voter fraud would be felons trying to vote, people voting twice on occasion. I never turned over one person having anything to do with a by-mail vote in Knox County. And I might say, too, I never turned over anybody that was an illegal immigrant who was voting, whether in person or by mail. So these are not problems we've experienced. But Greg's right. When you try to transition from most people voting in person to voting by mail, it's just a logistical nightmare, and it cannot be done quickly. The state of Washington, Greg mentioned, it took 5 years for them to do that process the way it needed to be done.
Well, I guess the question I would ask is simple.
Oh, Susan froze up just a bit. Don, why don't you take this
Change
one? Okay.
Well,
go
I think
to
she's back.
mail-in ballots here, or is it federal? I don't know the answer to that. Cliff?
I didn't hear all of the question, unfortunately, on that.
Okay. Would it take a state law change in our election commission laws in Tennessee in order for us to go to all mail-in ballot? Or is that
it would. Right now, you're right, Susan, because there are certain statutory exceptions that allow people to vote by mail. And if you don't fall into one of those, then you can't do it. And John was reading off some of them. The most significant one, of course, if you're 60 years of age or older. And now we've got COVID-19 was a reason to do it, just simply the fear of it. In August, Tennessee Supreme Court says now, no, you're going to have to show it a little more specifically. And the state website will tell you the illnesses that you have, that you will be allowed to vote by mail.
Just curious, I looked at the absentee ballots in Knox County in this past primary. Looks like we did have a much increased absentee ballot voting, and I'm assuming that was because the judge in Nashville said anyone could vote, not just the specific ones that you mentioned. Do you all believe, I guess, Greg, I would ask you this, and you too, Cliff, do you all believe it should be mail-in, give broader reasons to be able to vote, not just being over 60 or absent from your home on election day? Are there other choices?
I'm going to have you answer that question, Susan. We've just got to take a quick break, but we'll start our next block with that question, and Greg will go to you. Hang with us, and we'll be back momentarily.